Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow guest.
It's Mr. Solis.
Alright, so we are back. Last time we saw each other here on this podcast, we were discussing Wrestlemania. Now we're back. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Goodness, it's been about a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are about 35 days away from the end of the year, closing out strong. Big LAUSD oversight visit for us. But we had sort of a pre-meeting today online, and it went really well. So we're looking forward to tomorrow's visit, and then it's full steam ahead. Ooh, if you remember this, Jack, we got CASP. We got AP test going on. And, this new thing, the iReady. Imagine, Jack, it's just like Lexile, but for math.
Oh, okay. I remember all of those.
It's the second most wonderful time of the year, you might say.
Yes, it's always the most busiest too, and it's always such a hectic time. I know currently Dom and I were actually scheduled to record this morning, and it was yesterday night. He let me know, oh, I forgot, I have a finals during the time we usually record, so we had to reschedule till tomorrow.
You'll appreciate this. We gave a presentation on all the assessments we have to do, and I used the three-headed dragon meme, because you had CASP, mean dragon, AP test, mean dragon, derpy-looking dragon, iReady, because we're all still trying to really make sense of what on earth it's for. I think I get it, and it's convincing the kids that it's worth doing this whole other extra thing. Yeah, but good luck to you and Dom in your finals coming up.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what his experience has been like, because we've sort of been detailing as the episode's gone by, but he hadn't mentioned anything about finals up until recently, and that's probably like he do. We didn't end up getting to record last week, so that was probably when he would have let us know that he was going to be starting finals. But so, hoping the best for him, and obviously me.
Absolutely.
And it's towards the end of the school year. Always a hectic time. I remember those days so much. And, well, it still continues on, but there's not as much going on.
Different school, same struggles.
And I guess you could say the same struggles also apply here, as this month's pay-per-view, WrestleMania Backlash, is all about dealing with the previous struggles from WrestleMania.
I like that transition there, Jack.
I get better with these as the time goes on.
Hey, here's one. We had WrestleMania, but for some reason, we need a couple of reassessments. Enter WrestleMania Backlash.
That's a good one. But yes, so as we've seen since pretty much, I think it was last year. I don't think it happened. No, because after WrestleMania in 2020, it was Money in the Bank. But since last year, we started this trend where Backlash seems to be the pay-per-view to follow. And they title it WrestleMania Backlash as a way to essentially justify the rematches that happen.
Yeah, definitely get that sense, because how many do we have on this card?
1, 2, 3, 4. 4
out of 6.
66%
of this card is rematches.
Yes, very much so. But going into this pay-per-view, because like I mentioned to you, sir, I totally forgot this pay-per-view was happening, especially because a lot of things had changed and nothing was really confirmed until like the coming week of the pay-per-view. How did you feel going into it?
We're talking about a 6-match card with no title defense. There's one title on the line tonight, and for a company that's got like a dozen titles, I mean, there's a lot to be desired, right? Yeah, I wasn't looking forward to this, like, as much as other events.
Yeah, definitely had like the similar vibe where I was like, I get why a lot of these matches are progressing, but you couldn't throw in something here. And like you said, it's only 6 matches. A lot of people were like, how are they going to fill their usual time slot that they go with? And I'm pretty sure they didn't go with their usual time, so I'm pretty sure they finished maybe a bit early, because I remember watching it and being like, that kind of felt shorter than the usual watching experience.
For sure. And like I missed it live, at 5 o'clock. And so I knew I was going to watch the replay. I watched it at 9, comfortably finishing it before midnight.
Yeah. And, as you mentioned, only one title defense on here being Charlotte versus Ronda for the SmackDown Women's title. We were originally going to see the tag titles get unified, but then they turned that into a 6-man match, and everyone thought, well, like we've seen previously, maybe it's going to be a winner-take-all type match, but then it's just a 6-man match with nothing on the line.
With nothing on the line, and so to what end was... Why would anyone care who wins in this match, right?
Yeah.
Like, does anyone prove anything? No. Is it going to be a good match? There's 6 very capable people involved, but there's no stakes.
Yeah, very much. And it's definitely something that follows the rest of this card for the most part.
Right, yeah, no, for sure. Like, there's a lot of why bother about this card.
Yeah, and, we'll start off with the first match, which kind of has some sort of stakes, and not necessarily stakes as in title contention, title on the line, but their previous match at WrestleMania, Rollins versus Cody Rhodes. The stake kind of here is in the corner of Rollins trying to prove that he can beat Cody, and that WrestleMania was a fluke because he wasn't prepared. He was a surprise opponent. He couldn't prepare for him, whereas now he had the time to prep for Cody, and that's kind of the story being told here.
Of the 4 rematches tonight, this is the only one I wanted to see. Same. I think, run it back, please and thank you, because I love Seth Rollins coming at him saying, give me another shot, right? I don't know if he needed to dig into, like, family matters, bringing up his dad and stuff, unless that was all part of, like, I'm going to beat you before we start fighting, like, getting his head. But I was very impressed, Jack, right away, with how different this match was at the beginning.
I noticed that too. It wasn't even like as a whole, I felt like the match just wasn't a direct repeat of the match they had at WrestleMania. We've seen that time and time again in WWE where they'll have a rematch. See
later tonight with another match, but I remember how I felt watching Cody versus Seth at WrestleMania, and I remember being so surprised and impressed with how much offense Cody got. So this one starting all heavy Seth offense, I'm thinking, God, this is a totally different match.
Yeah, and something that we don't see a lot of from a lot of rematches in WWE. There's a lot of reversals of previous moves that happened in the previous match. Now Rollins is countering a lot of the moves Rhodes is trying to go for because he had the experience from the previous match.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I definitely really love this, and I mean, I'm really interested in the story of this match. I really love that closing sequence that they had, where it was just kind of like pure reversals from one another, where each man was trying to hit their big move, gets reversed, and they try and go for pins, and they keep getting reversed into different pins.
Jack, have you ever seen Cody hit the vertebraker?
I have not. I was surprised when I saw him going for that.
I wonder if I've only ever seen him go for it, only for it to be a reverse like we did. But, goodness, it was like, I saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and it's got some scary jump scares. I wasn't scared by anything in that movie more than seeing him set up the vertebraker.
Yeah, oh man. I think it's been such a long time since I've seen that move hit, especially in a WWE ring. So it's like,
right.
So seeing it get pulled out, yeah, I was like, it kind of reminded me of back in, what was it, like 2013 when Punk and Cena were having that match on Raw, and Punk went for a power driver, and you were like, wait, they're allowing him to do this? It was the same thing kind of here.
It's the same. It's on the same level of. Did he just call it a belt? Did he just try to set up a move that's like banned by life? Goodness. What was your highlight of the match, Jack?
I think it definitely, like I mentioned, it's probably just that closing sequence that they had, and I think another one was when was like all the times like he was trying to hit the classic Rhodes moves, like Dustin's falling and throwing up the punch, and Rollins was there to just stop him, and then also I think at one point Rollins tries, or I think he does hit it. He does the whole Dusty elbow.
Yes, he goes for the punches. I don't think he gets to hit the elbow.
Yeah, he hits the punches and he does this and he's about to go for it and Cody stops him.
Yeah, that was... What a dirty heel, that guy.
Yeah, and then I guess the most interesting part of this match, too, is also the finish in that, Rollins goes for the pin, grabs at the tights, Cody reverses it, grabs at the tights, and gets the win.
Yep, unlike Wrestlemania, where it was a definitive win, a clean all win, this one's a little dirtier. That's when he snuck it in.
Yeah.
And I'm super duper glad Cody won. I'm super duper glad this wasn't 50-50.
Yeah, a lot of people felt that way, especially given it being a rematch. They thought they were going to go 1-1, and everyone with the next pay-per-view being Hell in a Cell, everyone was like, oh, they're going to be like the Edge Rollins trilogy where they go 1-1 on each other and then settle in Hell in a Cell. Whereas now Cody's up 2-0 on him, and though on Raw, Rollins does attack Rhodes, presumably showing this feud isn't finished. Like I was telling my dad, I'm interested to see how it plays out because there's the whole thing of, well, what exactly, would a third match be to Cody? Obviously Rollins wants his win, but why should Cody give him that match?
Goodness.
So I'm
agreed. And what a way to build up this guy coming back from ring rust, Jack. Did you hear that from commentary? That I mean, isn't it enough Jimmy Smith that he's been wrestling on Raw for a month? But you're like, that ring rust, though. Good on Corey Graves to remind us he's been wrestling in other places, you weirdo. But, to build him up at 2 wins over the Kingslayer, the Beast Slayer, and all the things that Seth calls himself.
Yeah, really putting over Cody here. I'm excited to see, again, how the feud sort of continues from here. But like also I mentioned to my dad, I'm ready to see them start throwing a bunch of different people at Cody as well. Mm-hmm. But, he's here for a while, so it's not like he's here for a short time. They're getting the most out of this feud, and I can't wait to see what other feuds we get after it.
Yeah.
The next match, our second rematch of the night, Bobby Lashley versus Omas.
The second, rematch from WrestleMania, Bobby Lashley won. Mm-hmm. In a relatively surprising fashion just because of how big and new Omos is.
Yeah. It was definitely interesting, and I don't know. I think the interesting whole part of this feud is, obviously MVP turning on Lashley, but I don't know. I mean, it was a decent match to me, but still, it's very evident that Omos is still kind of very limited, of course, being his size.
Yeah.
But there wasn't much to the match per se, where it's just because of how limited he is, it's not like Lashley can do much with him.
And I'm so surprised how limited he's still, because he's been around for a minute, right? Tagged with AJ for so long. And I wonder if it's just, because there were spots where he looked better than others. And I wonder if it's if it's a spot that requires good timing between two people, it's going to look bad. Like I saw Bobby kind of react in a way where he's thinking he almost is in the right place and he wasn't. And I don't know. I want to say, stop doing that. Stop doing those moves. I think when it's big strikes, he's better. But goodness gracious, how is he looking so kind of gross with a big boot? It's a big boot. Pick your foot up, man.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it's they specifically had him paired with Styles for so long to, hopefully, shake off that true rust, unlike Cody, shake off the rust and develop. But I don't know. He still, like we're mentioning, he still feels kind of limited, and there's a lot of spots that still look kind of off a bit for him.
So, the Spine Buster, right? And I'll tell you this, Jack, because we saw a slow-mo replay of the Spine Buster, and I think this is maybe the absolute best use of that slow-mo replay, because I think it looked better in the replay than in real life. But my word, Bobby's doing all the work. He can lift 300 pounds, I think. The guy's jacked to the gills. But how'd he mess up that Spine Buster?
Yeah. This is one of those matches where I felt like it could have been swapped for some type of title defense.
I hear you, for sure.
Get one of, Ricochet or Austin Theory on the card to defend. Get Bianca on the card to defend. Anyone, really.
I like that like Becky's using this as part of her like storyline because she tweeted, "Hey, the title was defended every pay-per-view when I held it," so I thought that was really good.
Yeah, real good. But, you know...
And I wonder, Jack, because they've compared Omos to Andre the Giant, I wonder if we'd be having the same complaints if we were alive in the 80s watching Andre the Giant plot around the ring. I wonder if we'd be talking on a podcast going, I don't know about Andre, man. He looks hurt. He looks drunk.
Yeah, we'd watch WrestleMania 3 and be like, the whole match was just building up to this one moment. Everything else was slow and plodding.
With our hot takes. Ricky Steamboat. Savage Steamboat. That was match of the night.
But, so we move on. Third rematch of the night. This one, Styles versus the Edgelord.
And check it out, Jack. We're on our third rematch. First one, Cody won them both. Second one, they split it down the middle. And here we go. What are they going to do? Between AJ and the person who won at WrestleMania, Edge.
Yes, your favorite Edgelord, sir.
I'll tell you what, Jack, when it comes to like my criticisms of Edge and his current character, I came into this one with slightly more interest, Jack. I wasn't distracted for two reasons. One, he was going after AJ's shoulder. So, like, I don't know Edge to be somebody who picks a body part, but at least I had something to follow. And two, we were teased and, and we were given reason to think somebody was going to join his weirdo Bray Wyatt faction.
Yeah, so I definitely people were looking out for that. There was a lot of, as you mentioned, targeting of the shoulder. The part I want to say was just funny to me because like it totally adds to the point of like how WWE constantly changes like the rules, like their own rules, and there's never a set actual rules. It's always so fluid. Is Damian Priest coming out, and when AJ's trying to argue with him, Damian Priest is like, "I'm on the ramp. I'm not ringside. Actually, that's
absurd.
Ringside."
Absolutely absurd. Even if he wasn't ringside, the second Finn Balor pushes him into ringside. To your point, I think Edge loses.
Yeah, like I thought that was gonna happen the moment Balor came, even though he was forcibly pushed into ringside, and then they get in the ring too. I was expecting maybe some type of DQ to be called because I don't put it past this company to do DQs on pay-per-view.
So absurd. You're absolutely right. They forget their own rules. Frustrating. But Jack, before we get into how this match ended, I want to know what a highlight was for you, and I want to know who you thought was going to join Edge's little faction called Judgment Day.
All right. I think one of the highlights, because for a second I thought it was just like a normal dive, but when AJ did that moonsault to the outside, I thought that was really good, especially because Edge caught him pretty well, and it didn't look like he missed a majority of them. It was pretty well, and I think. Obviously, they had started teasing Rhea Ripley, but because that had only been so recent, I thought they were going to do maybe someone, like, random and give Rhea more build to it, Because I'd seen, like, a ton of names. Like, I'd seen people suggesting Ciampa, but Ciampa's been kind of feuding with Ali. But I think I really had it down to either Ciampa or Dijakovic, because, haven't seen him for a while, but people have been, like, saying that they could get him and make him and Priest the tag team if they wanted to.
Goodness.
Throw another name.
Tall glasses of water for sure. So I'm with you. I thought Ciampa, or something I heard is Finn Balor pretending to help AJ only to turn on him. I thought
I've heard that too.
Finn is stale, could use that sort of boost, and I always hated like that. I'm going to help you at first in psych, storytelling. But, if it just was going to let Finn Balor be aligned with Edge in this stable where they're going to really be behind, I'm like, sure, let's do that. So when he came out, I'm like, that X on his jacket is blue. If it was purple, I'd have been right. But no, he and Damian Priest disappear. AJ's like, well, I guess I'll go back to doing that spinal tap move maybe I was going to do. But what happens, Jack?
We see a hooded figure standing ringside.
And I think it's absurd that the commentary are like, who's that? Who's he? And I'm like, my man, that is not a he.
Yeah, especially because my thing was, like, it could have worked, but you couldn't give her any different tights, because I immediately could tell who it was by the tights, because it still had her old design on it. I was like, I could tell who this is. What do you mean, who's that?
Who's that?
But it's enough distraction for AJ.
My highlight of the match, Jack, was not a move. It was the revelation that Edge has mountains on his tights, because he's declaring that he's sitting on the top of a mountain of omnipotence, and on his butt there are mountains.
I didn't even see that.
I think that's very funny. I think that's like super self-aware, you know? And so our masked stranger, who, you know what, Edge is 2 up on AJ. She reveals herself to be Rhea Ripley with dyed black hair, and my new favorite part of this stable, Jack, is they seem to just look at each other maniacally and laugh. That's like a big lynch point, or a big detail of this stable, is they look at each other and laugh maniacally.
You're also forgetting their signature pose of just raising both arms up.
And why, Jack, tell me why. Every crossface that's ever been applied after 2010 looks so awkward.
I noticed that too.
Why, Jack? Was it because his arms were shorter or something? Because I think I remember that criticism about him. Won't say his name here. But ever since, anybody who's tried just looks real funky.
Yeah, I noticed that
here,
too.
looking real fun. He turned it into a choke.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I don't know. And it's weird seeing Edge, like, go to that move of all moves, because, like, he used to have, like, a submission of his own, so you would think he would bring that in if he wanted a submission move. It's like
he's less familiar with his own moveset than, like, the best Edge fan. Yeah. And it's every time he adds something to his character, it's only apparent how, like, lacking the original rated R superstar was. Goodness.
Yeah, and now the only question now is not where this feud goes, but is Edge dyeing his hair soon?
Ooh, ooh.
I know he got a haircut.
I
know he got a haircut, but I don't know. Seeing as how he might stand out a bit, standing next to Ripley now with her dyed hair and Damian Priest.
Goodness gracious. But I'm interested to know and to see what the Judgment Day faction do from here. Now that they're sort of, they're 3, right? Got a young up and comer like Damian Priest. You got the female powerhouse Rhea Ripley. Just what are they going to do, Jack? Except for make a guy from Georgia real miserable. Like, so far, like, that's what they've done. What are they going to do, Jack?
Yeah, I think that's something that, especially when it comes to, like, factions, WWE kind of struggles to really make clear their motives. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't help that apparently last night on Raw there was another tease that they're going to add another member, or that they're planning to add.
You think so for sure, but, like, can you imagine Edge, like, talking out of his butt about all the things that he talks about from that throne? And imagine, like, somebody going, so you're going to go after the world title? And he's like, no. No, I don't think... I've tried the Roman Reigns thing, and no. We'll wait till somebody else takes it off him. And then you're like, well, the tag titles. You're certainly going to go after the tag titles. You're like, no. They're doing some bloodline business. We're not gonna go there.
Interesting to see where this all goes and what their true motives are revealed to be, for sure. But we move on to the next match, the 4th rematch. Our final rematch. One that, even with the stipulation given, I still wasn't excited for.
Can I share with you this, Jack? I was listening to another podcast. They were pontificating on the matches they were looking forward to. And this is an I quit match. In order to win, you have to get your opponent to say I quit. And this person said, I'm frankly not looking forward to a match that's going to ask either one of them to say even more.
Oh, man. The funniest part about this match, we're talking about the SmackDown Women's Championship match, Charlotte Flair defending against Ronda Rousey, was in the beginning. I caught it and I brought it up to my dad because it made me think shenanigans were about to go down. The announcer says you have to actually get your opponent to say "I quit," and I was like, I looked at my dad. I'm like, why are they specifying that you actually have to get them to say it? You know, why is this a key detail now? But it didn't come into fruition at all throughout the match.
Yeah, well, you and I know our wrestling history, and we know that people have lost this match not saying "I quit," but you know, by nefarious means, we were led to believe it happened.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson from like 25 years ago. Sneaky guy.
What were your thoughts on this match, sir?
It happens every Charlotte Flair match. There gets this point where I catch myself enjoying it. And you know, we saw this happen with Ronda Rousey and Stephanie McMahon. We just saw a lot of punishment being dished out. And when I saw Ronda Rousey destroy a kendo stick over Charlotte's back, I just was almost vindicated. I'm like, yes, please continue.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of brutality in this match, and I think the funniest part was when I forget what was the exact reason as to why Ronda was chasing Charlotte down the ramp, and then you see her go backstage just to emerge with 2 kendo sticks.
Yeah, Ronda had gotten control of the one, so Charlotte, unarmed, runs away, goes to the back where I guess she stored 2 others.
Yeah, I found that funny too, because I was just like, why did you have to go all the way backstage for? Like, I thought they were gonna actually film some segments backstage, you know, and because that's something I don't think we've seen for a while. Really, is, you know, segments and matches of this caliber extend to like the backstage areas anymore.
No, we saw these 2 go up the, you know, amongst the crowd in the audience up the, like, you know, stairs.
Yeah.
In a spot reminiscent of Charlotte versus Sasha Banks.
Yeah. I thought that was a real good little callback. And then you have the spot where Ronda gets her in an armbar over the ropes.
Oh, yeah.
That was real good. And then they take that little slip and fall. I thought that was a bit scary spot, but I was like, hey, these women are showing how tough they are.
I think now's as good a time as any to bring up Pat McAfee, and he's on fire all night. But when we've got our kendo stick fight, he wishes Charlotte may the 4th be with you. That guy, being aware of culture outside of the WWE. Stop it, you. I'm starting to like you.
Yeah, real good. And then...
Did you hear what he said? I think we're outside right after that armbar spot. Did you hear who he called out?
The person in the Fiend mask, right?
What is he doing? What is he doing?
He's literally, him and Cody are like probably, you know, raising McMahon's blood pressure with all these banned terms they keep mentioning.
And like, it's really, if it upsets Vince McMahon, it's so absurd that it does, because the people in the know are enjoying themselves to death, and the people who don't know don't even notice. They're not bothered by it. But they're like the Deadpool of WWE.
Yeah, I just found it so funny because it's like not even subtle. He just goes, "Is that the Fiend at ringside?" And it's just like, and you're just like, because I've heard, you know, we've heard the stories of how at times Vince is in their ears, especially. So it's like all I can just picture is McMahon screaming at him through the mic in his ear.
Do you remember there's a Raw when The Rock is out there, and it was, you know, a rare occurrence for him to be there, but there's these guys cosplaying in the front row, and they're trying to move him because one of them's dressed like Hulk Hogan, and The Rock just outright gets out of the ring, goes to the barricade. He's like, let me talk to these guys, because The Rock is awesome.
I remember that too.
Goodness. But this match, Jack, it was brutal. And you know what? I think like every Charlotte match I'm watching, enjoying myself, but also bracing for impact, because I don't think Ronda's going to win. I think, nope, Charlotte's good. Charlotte said it at a SmackDown. She's like, I always find a way. And I go, I hate that you do, and it's true. Ugh. But Jack, what happens?
Ronda gets her in an armbar. Charlotte refuses to quit. So Ronda says, all right then. And, in kayfabe, breaks her arm. And that gets Charlotte to quit. And thus, new SmackDown Women's Champion, Ronda Rousey.
Yep, and Charlotte said the words, I quit. And later in the night, we get an update from, Kayla Braxton maybe, that Charlotte's radial was broken, and Pat McAfee, here with the anatomy lesson, the radial, there's a bone in your arm. Ronda broke her arm.
Yeah, and so it's presumed Charlotte's probably taking some time off. Who knows when she comes back? Maybe it's not even that long. But who knows? I mean, tying into the main event, there was recent news that someone else was also taking time off. Much more drastic, but get into that later.
Yes.
But
how are we doing on time, Jack?
Got 13 minutes left.
Okay. How do you want to proceed?
Well, if we want, we can end this one early. Have it be a shorter one, just so that it gives us more to talk about in a part 2. Because I feel like even though there was a lot in that main event, I don't think it can cover an episode on its own.
No. So we can talk about 2 matches and then pontificate on the month ahead.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we'll close out here. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. Tune into the next episode, Part 2, where we discuss Baron Corbin versus Madcap Moss and RK Bro with Drew McIntyre taking on the Bloodline in a 6-man tag match.